NASCAR heads to the desert this weekend in Phoenix. Cash in on your best bets and our driver tiers. All this and more on the back road. Let's get it.
It's a non-points race, but it is a short race. Checkered flag. That's all this race is.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Backroad. It's In Between Media's NASCAR betting show, and it is Phoenix week as the Cup Series heads out to the desert in Avondale, Arizona. I'm Elliot Hicks. Seth Woolcock is with me as always, and we've got our good friend Chris from the Flag Hunting Pod here tonight. Thanks for joining us, Chris.
Yeah, guys, always a blast to be on here. So excited to talk tonight about some Phoenix.
This is going to be a real fun one. We'll look back at Vegas and look ahead to Phoenix. And tonight's episode, thanks for watching again. If you tune in, like and subscribe and do all that fun stuff to In Between Media. Tonight, this episode is powered by Fantrax. They're the premier fantasy motorsports season-long platform. We've been talking about them a little bit this year. We've got a season-long league running. And Seth, that's been a pretty good time doing that this year so far.
Elliot, between Fantrax, NASCAR, and F1 that just got underway this weekend, it has been stellar over there. And it's so fun because it is a season-long format, but we can continue to play differently and pick each and every single week. It's customizable. They have their driver tiers. They have their salary cap. That's kind of my favorite thing. At each and every week, go in there, make my team based on how I'm feeling. A lot of times it lines up with who I'm betting on. So a little extra stake in the game. Different styles. They have total points, categories if you like that, and then head-to-head if you want that traditional fantasy football type feel as well. So a lot of cool things going on right now. You can get involved. Go to fantrax.com/IBT. Payment option, you can put it in the game. So, like, you don't have to Venmo anyone, get in trouble with that type of stuff. You can also play for free with your friends, public leagues. Get over there, fantrax.com/IBT. Get racing, guys. Get racing. Elliot, I think before we look ahead to Phoenix, I think we got to jump back here and talk about what was a stellar week out there in Vegas, baby.
No doubt. I am excited. I did set my lineup for Phoenix on Fantrax a little bit ago, but you're right. First off, we got to take a look in the rear view. So looking back at the Vegas race, the happiest man in Sin City was Rick Hendrick as his drivers went 1-2-3 in Las Vegas, with William Byron, the dominant driver, winning on a late restart. Kyle Larson, it looked like he was going to take the checkered flag. He ends up second. Alex Bowman rounds out the Hendrick 1-2-3 in third. How were your bets this week, guys?
Chris, how are they? I know you guys like chase the flags. Like you guys go for outright. So
they hunt the flags more specifically.
Were you on William Byron? Were you riding that ticket last week?
Unfortunately not. Well, our main two bets from an outright perspective. So we caught Bubba and Suarez earlier in the week. We found 50-1s on them like Monday or Tuesday of last week. So that got bet down to like 25-1 by close. So that was nice. But we went pretty much all in on Ross Chastain Sunday morning. So not quite the angle of Byron or Larson, unfortunately. But yeah, I think I was just telling you guys beforehand, we were pretty heavy on Byron and Larson in the prop market, so we pretty much nailed all of our props, but it wasn't quite enough to outweigh the outrights. So unfortunately not. What about you guys?
That's the only place we went wrong is we were all on Ross. Rod and I were hot on the track on that one. So we didn't hit Ross, but all the prop bets came to be. Alex Bowman came back through us. Suarez, Chris Bell, Truex, like those were all really juicy. The matchups hit. Corey LaJoie, baby. We took that one home. And Daniel Suarez over Austin Dillon. You doubted me on a couple of those, Elliot, but we got her done.
I did. I mean, Corey LaJoie still impressing. I mean, we'll touch on him a little bit later. But, yeah, fairly good week for the Backroad guys, so we certainly enjoy that.
Yeah, I'm excited, man. We're up a good 18 units over the last 2 weeks, so we're heading in hot here to Phoenix, which is always a fun one as well.
No doubt about it. I find it interesting Phoenix is kind of so early in the year. It feels like we were just there for the championship race, and it's 4 points races later we're back. But Good time to catch data and a good time now to look ahead on the horizon forecast.
Hey, Michael, it was only 20% chance of rain. I think we got all 20.
Shout out, as always, to Ray Dunlap. All right, so Phoenix, a 1 mile tri-oval. It's got progressive banking throughout the track. Of course, it was reconfigured around 2018, 2019 when they took the back straightaway and made it the front straightaway. They took the front straightaway, made it the back straightaway. They paved that whole grassy area, and now you see guys run all the way down to the wall, heading up to the start-finish line. It's pretty nuts. Some similar tracks we're looking at, Richmond, Gateway, New Hampshire, some of these other flat, shorter tracks. A couple of new things to factor in, some package changes, and Seth, you put through this in there about the January test that took place at Phoenix.
Yeah, so it is something to keep in mind, and it's a debated topic right now in the industry. Should we be considering that these guys who did this January test group, should they have a little bit of an advantage coming into this, driving this new low downforce package? That's Jimmy Johnson, Chris Bell, Ross Chastain, Eric Jones, Brad Keselowski, Logano, Stenhouse. So, Chris, when you weighed your data, did you weigh this factor at all that these guys were kind of in this new package? And do you think this is going to change a lot? Because the sentiment out there is that it's going to help. Everyone's been asking for these low downforce packages for years now. However, it's not going to solve everything all at once here. Are you on that train as well?
Yeah, so I guess to answer your first question, no, I'm not. I didn't even look to see who participated in the practice because I don't.
Okay.
I think that was more of a test for NASCAR itself of like how they wanted to structure the car rather than a test for the teams, at least the way I see it. Because I mean, Brian Murphy referenced on Derek's betting show last night of like Stewart Haas wasn't even there; they weren't even present for it. So yeah, I didn't bring that into play at all. But yeah, you're right. The package in general is a hot topic this week, and even people within the industry seem so split on it, right? Because you hear Denny Hamlin on his podcast, Actions Detrimental, saying, like, man, he thinks the field's going to be spread out and he thinks practice is going to be important to pay attention to. And then you hear guys like Steve Letarte and, Brian Murphy saying, like, it's really not going to be that much different. Honestly, it's going to look a lot like last year. So you kind of like, as a bettor, I feel like a lot of us are following the same track of like, let's just wait and see what we see in practice, tomorrow night and build our cards from there because it's kind of up in the air.
Elliot, is that how you're kind of feeling as well? Or are you weighing this new package at all? Obviously, it is going to be different, but how different is the question?
Yeah, I think that waiting on practice is definitely the thing to do here. And something else that interests me too when you're looking at the data is, of course, you're looking at all of the races, your Phoenixes and your New Hampshires, your Gateways. One race that I'm not figuring is a race that happens at the same track, and it's the championship race. iFantasy Race, who we've used some of their data on the broadcast, on the show before, same thing. Made a tweet that they're not really, that it's debatable to consider whether to use the championship race data, Phoenix 2 as it's colloquially called. That really throws some wrenches into it, I feel like, because, iFantasy Race tweeted that a lot of teams were in vacation mode. They were already on the beach, so to speak. I'm not really factoring in that data. Obviously, it's important that you run well at the same exact track that you're racing at this week. But the championship race, there's just so much that's different that goes into there. Obviously, your teams are going to put your focus on the championship car. If you're in there, there are teams that are just trying to save resources. There's always rumors that maybe those 4 cars get a little bit of extra speed. You never
Right.
Really factor this data into your considerations, because I'm fine just taking it and putting it in its own separate box and not really considering it.
I still weighed it in my data, but I had an asterisk next to it. Chris, is that how you took your approach as well?
So when I came into the week, I thought about that. Like, do I want to? But to your point, right, Elliot, about iFantasy Race and his total speed rankings, when I looked at the speed rankings, it actually convinced me to just use it. Because when you look at the Championship 4 drivers, I can just run down the list, right? Ryan Blaney is number 1, not a playoff driver. Number 2 was... No, not great radio here, but number 3, William Byron, not a playoff driver. Number 6, Truex, not a playoff driver. Larson, 7. We had to get all the way down to 8 in total speed rankings to see the next playoff driver. So, I think there are drivers that showed out in Phoenix. I think we need to pay attention to that.
Yeah, 100%. Those guys like Briscoe, Harvick, we're going to talk about them that weren't in that championship for that. I think we should be, obviously I don't think we can weigh it 100%, but I'm still factoring in. Elliot, completely understand, though, why you would kind of take that approach the other way.
Yeah, the guys you mentioned, Briscoe and Harvick. Briscoe won the spring race last year, and Kevin Harvick has won 8,000 races at this track.
How about it?
So those are obviously guys to consider, and guys that we definitely are going to consider in this week's tire tiers.
All right.
All right, so it's our tier maker. You know it, you love it, and it's always a good time. Some of the favorites on DraftKings this week. Kyle Larson's got the highest salary at $11,100. That might be the biggest I've seen for a favorite this year. And you got Logano at 10.8, Kyle Busch 10.6, Ryan Blaney at 10.3, Ross Chastain 10,000, Byron 9,800, Hamlin, Reddick, and Truex are your favorites. So this should be a pretty interesting one, how we want to rank these guys this week. Chris, we'll let you start. Pick a guy you want to talk about, presumably to throw in your driver ace for the weekend.
Yeah, I mean, so if we think this package is not going to be all that different from last year, or even if it is, right? I think you have to have Ryan Blaney at the top. I mean, we just talked about how at the championship race, Ryan Blaney wasn't even a championship 4 driver, and he had the fastest car. Like, I don't think anybody will dispute that. Joey Logano was out cruising while Blaney was blocking for him. So yeah, I think it's a good place to start with Blaney at the top there.
All right. Elliot, go here at 102. I figured Blaney would go first here, especially knowing Chris was on the show. Elliot, what do you have for us?
I mean, it's tough with such a big price, like I was saying with Larson, but I think Larson still has got to be a driver A. I mean, other than, I forget, maybe 2 or 3 races ago, I don't have the tweet in front of me, but other than that race, he was running 5th, blew a motor, ended up in the 30s. He's consistently been a top 10, if not a top 5, if not a race winning driver here, like he did when he won the title in 2021. Obviously, it's no value pick, but driver A's aren't value picks. Driver A's are the guys who are going to get you some damn points, and Kyle Larson is going to do that.
I like that you guys kind of came out here and you took these favorite off the board, so I didn't really have to talk about them. I'm dipping down into the 9s right away. I don't really love the 10,000, 11,000 range. I think the optimal lineup this week is going to come with the number 4 Busch Light car in that first driver A slot of your team. Guys, Kevin Harvick's been excellent so far this season. Maybe the hottest start he's had in a while. 40 DraftKings points is what he's averaging right now. And he comes into this race, 19 straight top 10s at Phoenix. Like, he's going to be consistent. He's not going to let you down. While Larson's been a little up and down this season, Blaney's been up and down this season. I think I'd rather hedge and pay down a little bit for a guy who already has 2 top 10s this season, boys.
Yeah, absolutely. And Harvick is not a guy that we just talked about this on flag hunting too, right? Harvick doesn't qualify well. So, if we're looking at this even from like a betting standpoint too, you should be able to get a better number than 10-1 come race day, because he's not going to qualify well, but we know he's going to be a factor of top 5 or win, right?
9,000 is his price right now on DraftKings, and like you mentioned, Chris, he's going to get some of those differential points as well. So yeah, Kevin Harvick, I love it here, Chris. You're back up. Keep rounding out the A's here if you would.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I'm just going to go the other side of the Penske stable here, right? Joey Logano, the champion. It's kind of hard to miss him. The model that I put together, Ryan Blaney and Joey Logano are number 1 and 2. We talk about how good Harvick is here, but best in driver rating over the last 7 races here is Joey Logano. So, yeah, I'll go right back to Penske stable.
All right. Elliot, you're up, man.
Yeah, not bad. Logano was hot for me, and so is Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch kind of had a down week. Still had a fairly decent finish at Vegas, but remember, he hit the wall pretty early and said that his steering wheel was kind of off. We didn't really see the full potential of the 8 car trying to pick up that momentum after that Fontana win. Again, maybe a little steep here, 10-6, but again, you want guys who are going to get you some damn points. I feel like Kyle Busch rebounds from that Vegas wall slapping incident and comes back with a good finish here.
All right. If I'm paying up in the 10s, it is going to be for Ross Chastain here for me, guys. And yeah, he didn't have the finish we wanted to. I know a lot of top 5s, a lot of top 10s were riding on him, some outright tickets. We certainly were last week. However, he was still number 1 in speed ranking. He dropped off towards the end of the race, but I think Ross coming back here to Phoenix, we saw him run 2nd here last year. I like Ross Chastain still if I am paying up for that 10,000 range. Chris, back down to you for continue with the A's, or if you want to start the B's, your choice, my friend.
I think I'm going to go. Let's go down. I'm going to go to the B's. Let's go to B here. I'm going to give you William Byron for a driver B. A guy that is, he's really good at these kind of short tracks, short flats, and especially he was a winner last year at Martinsville. And then he's a guy who qualifies well as well between Phoenix and the other short flats, 3rd in average qualifying. So he should be a guy that starts up towards the front.
See, I was going to throw Byron in the A's just because he's got so much disrespect on this show. Normally, we would hit what I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago. We talked about like 24 different drivers before we talked about Byron.
It was last week, Elliot. Yeah.
He's got some big time disrespect from this show. I was going to throw him in the A's for that, but I am okay with him being in the B's at a price of 9,800 without a whole lot of success at these kind of tracks. So that's fair.
Before we keep going, I do want to address the chat here. It looks like we got Derek in the chat tonight saying, let's go. Good to see you tonight, Derek. Appreciate you tuning in. Phil's out here. He says he loves Blaney this week. He's calling the shot here on number 20. Number 17, name to watch. Derek, you must be my card, buddy, because we got all these guys tonight, man. Giddy up. We appreciate
right there, Derek's reading my mind. My next pick was going to be Suarez. He's got his stat wrong, though. Suarez not the only guy to have all 3 top 10s this year. Alex Bowman also does. I'll talk about Bowman later, but I got to put Suarez in the B's. He's the other disrespected driver on this show. Not in the fact that we're not betting him necessarily or that we're not talking about him or that we've disrespected him. He's just not been a sexy pick for us in these tiers, and we're going to talk about him early to make sure he gets in. He's solid as a B here. Price of 8,500. I don't hate that. I don't hate that.
All right. But before we keep going, I do want to thank everyone for tuning in tonight. Got a lot of listeners in the chat. If you guys are new to the channel, give us a thumbs up on this video, subscribe. We got a lot of content coming your way this NFL offseason and NASCAR season. So I'm going to go with my little Huckleberry this week. I'm going in the Christopher Bell camp, boys. I've been trepidatious a little bit in the past with Chris Bell. And I know he hasn't ever run super great at Phoenix, but I like what he can do here. Most top 5s this season, tied with Bowman at 2. He's been consistent for your fantasy lineups, 7th in speed ranking last week, and 9th in speed ranking at the overall flat tracks, the short flat tracks in 2022, courtesy of iFantasy Race over there as well. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about him later, why I like him, possibly even for an outright play this week. But I think with the discount you get with Christopher Bell here, if you can play 8,800 for him, pay 9,000 for Harvick, I'd rather have 2 of those guys than pay up for one of those, the Blaneys, the Larsons of the world.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna stick in the B's as well. If we see some speed from Toyota for the first time this year, I think Denny Hamlin's a guy to watch out for. Short flats are kind of always a thing where you look to see Denny kind of competing. He also, again, I kind of keep bringing this up, but he's a great qualifier at these short flats. He ranked the same as Byron, 3rd in average qualifying at these short flats. And he's got a ranked 3rd in average finish over his career at Phoenix. So hopefully some speed from the Toyotas this week.
All right. Elliot, I think I know where Elliot's going with on this pick. If I had to lay money, I don't care what the line is. I'm taking it. I know who you're going with, Elliot.
Well, here we go. I'm going to make a double pick here if that's all right. And I'm going to go down to the C's for both of these drivers. Okay. One of them is going to be Alex Bowman because I'm low on him this week. This has been, in terms of the track types, it's the worst that Bowman, the worst type of tracks that Bowman runs on. He really does not run up front at tracks like these very often. And even though, recent speed is certainly a contender here, he's one of the most consistent drivers in the series this year. And recent speed is going to factor in to my next pick. I'm bumping up Corey LaJoie into the C's.
Let's go. Finally.
I haven't given him the respect. DraftKings hadn't given him the respect either. They finally bumped his price up a little bit to 5,600 above McDowell, Zane Smith, Ty Dillon, when he still was kind of in the bottom there. I said last week for LaJoie, I needed some more consistent runs, and he was consistent again at Vegas. So in terms of recent speed, I like LaJoie in the C's. In terms of track history and not running well, I'm bumping my guy Bowman down to the C's.
I'm going to show a little Bowman love later in the show, guys, but he was 9th here in average speed ranking, so I think we're discounting him a little bit, and that was a spring race, so I don't know. I think he has, like, a lot of the issue with Bowman is he goes on these summer slumps, and that's a lot of these shorter flat tracks is during that summertime. So
and it's not even the summer slump for me with Bowman. It's just these tracks. I can't think of a time when he's been in major contention to win. Definitely not at Phoenix since he was subbing for Dale Jr. in 2016. He hasn't led a lap at Phoenix or finished, I think, top 5 or maybe even top 10 since that race.
I'm going to throw Tyler Reddick in this tier as well here, boys. And Tyler Reddick, he's 9,400, so I think he's really priced pretty high over here that I don't think I'm going to be paying up for him when I can get Harvick, Bell a little bit cheaper. How do you guys feel about Tyler Reddick here? Obviously led a lot of laps last season in this race, but he doesn't always have the most consistent finishes at these flatter tracks. How do you feel about it, Chris?
Oh man, you would go to me. I'm a Reddick stan, so this is hard, and I know that Phil is watching this right now. And we talked about this in the offseason pod, and I was beating a dead horse about how this is not a lateral move, or how this is not a down crease in equipment. It's a lateral move.
I agree. Yeah,
I know we're only 3 races in, but I'm eating my words a little bit because Kyle.
It's not that Reddick has run poorly; he's just had some bad luck.
No, he really has. It's been bad luck. Yeah, I don't know that we're going to see anything from Reddick this week, though. I don't think this is the week. I prefer Reddick at like the hot summer races at intermediates. So yeah, I'm okay with Reddick in the C's this week.
Yeah, and Chris, you mentioned it earlier about not being sure about the Toyotas having speed in this season, let alone at Phoenix, where they haven't necessarily had a whole lot of speed either. So I'm still iffy on Reddick, especially the price of 9,400. Higher than MTJ, Harvick, Bell, Bowman, Suarez. Still a bit of a steep price. Reddick's gonna catch a hot streak. I just don't know if it starts this week.
100%.
I would like to throw Martin Truex up in that B tier as well while we're at it. Listen, I've been fading Martin Truex harder than almost anyone in this industry the last, I feel like, six to 8 months. However, last week we rode him. We rode him to a very nice top 10 finish. He got ballsy at the end, but he still cashed that ticket for us. So I think at 9,200, you can do a lot worse than MTJ this week here, boys.
No, I don't hate that at all. He's second in total speed at the similar tracks last year. Yeah. So, we talk about bad luck for Reddick this year, bad luck for Truex last year. But hey, I want to go back to the B range. I think this is a guy that everyone's talking about this week, and I'm surprised we haven't brought him up yet. But Chase Briscoe, I think he deserves to be in that B range. I'm finding myself a little high on SHR this week. I can't convince myself out of any of these drivers, and that might be to my detriment, but I hope not. I hope it's the opposite. I hope they come out and kill it. But yeah, Briscoe, man. I mean, first in average finish of these 2 races last year. I also got to go tour SHR with friend of the pod, Rory Pix and Brian Murphy. And I happen to know a little bit of knowledge that they are bringing Briscoe's race-winning car to this race. So obviously they trust something there, right?
Yeah, that's intriguing. I kind of like Stuart Haas this week, too. Did you have a comment, Seth, before we move on?
Well, I was just going to say, when you have Rory and Chris getting insider information out there, you got Brian over on the preview show hyping them up. It's hard not to get, I feel it too, man. I feel the good vibes with that organization. I mean, this is, in my opinion, I think this is SHR's best track. So it makes sense to put him up there. I think the only thing you got to know is if you play Chase Briscoe and DFS and Fantrax, whatever you're playing this week, guys, he's going to be chalky. A lot of people are seeing the same thing that we are with him. So, I like to play other than the chalk, though, Chris. That's the only thing that concerns me. That's fair. Because, there could be 70% of the field just taken out if Briscoe happens to fall. And then, most of your lineups are done. But, Elliot, add more to the B here, round out the C's, whatever you're feeling, my brother.
Well, my initial pick here was going to be Keselowski, so I'll talk about him. I'm thinking I'm going to put him in the C's. And even though I just discounted the recent speed for Bowman, I counted it for Corey LaJoie. I'm going to count it for Keselowski too. Daytona, I was fading him hard. They ran terribly at the Clash. RFK Racing has ran better this year. He's at a fair price at $7,800. That's lower than Chase Briscoe, Bubba Wallace, and even Josh Berry is ahead of him, which I don't really get that at all, but we'll talk about that later. Keselowski averaging 34 points this year in DraftKings. That's not bad. I'm not quite completely on the RFK Keselowski train yet, but if I'm hopping on that train, you can say I'm running alongside it, about to hop on if there's a good finish at Phoenix.
Elliot, I like that play, but I think I like Chris Buescher more. Top 10 here at this track last season. Keselowski was really bad at both Phoenixes in average speed rankings, so I'm going to throw Chris Buescher up there. Last week in my Fantrax league, I did go with Keselowski, and it got the job done. He got some stage points a couple times, but I think Chris Buescher has the higher ceiling here. Albeit, the price is $6,600. So I think I'd rather pay down a little bit for Buescher there.
That is a good price. I didn't see he was that low. That's a good price for him.
Chris, any thought here on the RFK boys or anyone else you want to add to see here?
Yeah, I don't really know where I stand on the RFK guys. I think I prefer the SHR guys in the Ford camp, if I'm being honest, and I'm going to go right back to the well. Eric Almirola, driver's seat.
I knew it. You sick son of a bitch.
I can't quit these guys, man. I mean, me and Ian just recorded, I think half the podcast we talked about SHR. But yeah, Eric Almirola, I mean, he is. I mean, everyone wants to bet him at super speedways, but short flats, he's sneaky at short flats. So yeah, I have a. I have a pretty fun group bet on Almirola that we'll talk about later. So
Jeez. What about Josh Berry? Where's Josh Berry going here? I don't want to jump the gun, but I've been staring the 9 in the face. I had a couple people from our Fantrax league last week text me, "Hey, I'm diving down. Josh Berry's only, he's the min. He's the min here." Would you guys play Josh Berry this week here, Elliot? Would you give him a rip? 8,000 on DraftKings. It's a pretty steep price for the kid.
At that price, he's going in the E's. I mean, I like Josh Berry. He's done well in Xfinity. I love
That's your
that
guy.
he's getting an opportunity in some of the best cars in the Cup Series. A, I don't think he's quite ready for it, and B, I don't think Hendrick is going to focus on the 9. We've talked about this. The summer slumps with Hendrick. It's happened to Byron. It's happened to Bowman. To a lesser extent, it's happened to Chase somewhat. If Hendrick is going to go through those experiments of experimenting with the car, maybe giving a car a different setup, it's going to be this 9 car. I mean, last week they knew that Chase wasn't going to be in the car, and there were suddenly throttle problems on the 9. When's the last time you heard about throttle problems on any car ever? I mean, was it just really micro? They were really focused in on it because it was the 9 and the sport's most popular driver was out, or is this something that happens that people don't talk about? But I'm not touching Josh Berry with the pole until he runs on the lap or at least one lap down. Show me something in Cup in a good car, and then you're definitely intriguing. Maybe if he does well, it leads to a full-time Cup ride in the future. My guy Dale Jr. is real big on him being a future Cup champion. We just got to see it. He's in a good car. We got to see it after Vegas, and at that price of 8,000, I'm 100% out on Josh Berry.
Yeah, I think he's still the minimum or close to it on Fantrax, so maybe I'd be more intrigued to play.
With that being said, because he's the minimum on Fantrax, he's in my Fantrax list. But only because he's at the minimum price. I don't think he's going to run well, but when you're at the minimum price, you have to pick him up. And another guy who's still somehow at the minimum price on Fantrax is Ryan Preece. We're going to go ahead and round out the SHR train while we're going here. People I wouldn't say they forgot about Preece. He's around. He's running more consistent than Custer, I feel like. We were talking about how well he ran at the Clash. I'd probably even put him, D's is okay, maybe even in the C's. If SHR is going to be real good, I don't see why Ryan Preece can't be running right up there with Briscoe this week.
Yeah, I think the only thing to I worry with Preece, and I was riding this train hard. I had him in a couple of different leagues early in the season, and it's just he's getting used to this car, I think, still. He hasn't had a lot of next-gen experience. I don't mind the play for what you're getting him at, especially Fantrax does not want anything to do with this guy. He's been the minimum for 4 weeks now. So, I don't mind him there, Elliot. Not really at all. Chris, anyone else you're feeling here? Because the only guy I'm feeling is I think Bubba belongs in this C tier as well. And listen, I used to count out Bubba at these short flat tracks. I feel like I never saw much from him. However, something changed last year at New Hampshire. Loudon, we were fading him hard going into Loudon. I think I had so many different matchups against him, Chris, and he burned me. Do you think that was real speed that could maybe translate here to Phoenix? And if so, what tier does Bubba Wallace belong in?
Yeah, no, I guess a little teaser to the group bet I was talking about earlier. I'm picking on Bubba this week, and I think that was. I mean, that's the only outlier, right? Every other race at the short flats was in the low 20s or high 20s. So, yeah, no, I think Bubba goes to the D's for me personally. Now, another guy that I do want to bring up, I don't know how I feel on this, so I'm curious to see how you guys feel. But 10th in total speed at the second Phoenix race last year was AJ Allmendinger. The colleagues showed a lot of speed down the stretch. They haven't really showed it this year, but I think Dinger is an interesting scenario this week. I'm going to put him in the D's just because I don't think he deserves to be in the C's, but I think he's an interesting guy to talk about.
Yeah, I was bringing up colleague too. I think that they still have some untapped potential. Allmendinger's ran well in these races. He just ended up crashing out of all 3 races, whether it's on the last lap or not. They're intriguing for sure.
The number 16 car, I don't know if it was AJ in particular that was in the Phoenix race in the fall, but top 10 in average speed ranking as well at this track. So something to consider there. Yeah, I don't mind that at all. I've played AJ a couple times in Fantrax this year and DFS, and he's bit me a little bit because he's always having these late race cautions where he's losing a lot of spots, but he's consistent, man. He's going to probably run top 20 or right on the edge of it here. Elliot, anyone else you want to throw in the D's here?
There's a couple of people I wouldn't mind bringing up for discussion, and one of them is Austin Cindric. Cindric has kind of been in that Byron Suarez category of us not really talking about him on the show. We've got the Penske boys now. They were 2 of the first 4 off the board were Penske guys. Austin Cindric at 7,100. It's an okay price. I think we're just really waiting for him to break out.
Yeah. I was really disappointed with how he ran at Auto Club. That's kind of why I didn't have much exposure to him last week because of how he ran at Auto Club. But I understand that play quite a bit. Who else are you thinking for this D tier?
I was curious what you guys thought of the Legacy Motor Club cars with Gregson and Eric Jones, if there were any thoughts there. Gregson at 6,000, Jones is at 7,600. They're both hovering around like 20.5, 21 points this year on DraftKings. I don't know. I want to buy in so bad. They're just not quite there yet. They're two talented drivers.
I'd be more willing to go in on Gibbs than Gregson. That 42 car just hasn't shown life in how
He was
long. I mean, I've been picking on Gregson in matchups all year long. So I'd be more inclined to put Gregson in the E and put who we're just talking about? Yeah, Gibbs in the D. Yeah.
Okay.
Ty Gibbs was my last guy I was going to talk about because I was going to throw him in the E's again, man. He qualified well in the top 10 at Vegas and then was like 35th before we knew it. He's just not there yet. I have no doubt he's going to have the talent. Joe Gibbs is eventually going to figure out how to make him a good driver again in the Cup Series. It's just not there, and he's just not worth touching. His prices are still a little too high for me at 6,700. He's only averaging 19 points. There's 7, 8, 9 guys directly below him, including Corey LaJoie in a Spire car that have been averaging better points than him this year. And we all know how much crap I talk on Spire. So if a Spire car is outrunning you and you're in a car that Kyle Busch was in last year, you're having a bad time, buddy. So I'm still out on Ty.
And I think that's the issue. If you're playing on DraftKings right now, it's 6,700. That's above Busher, Haley, Allmendinger, guys I would all much rather
all
play.
Guys that are averaging more points than him.
Yeah, so I won't be playing him there. I did play him in Fantrax last week, and I would consider him there again for the right price. The kid can qualify. We know that. We know he can run when no one else is out there.
Last year for the title, so
yeah.
Oh yeah, he blew the competition away in that Xfinity Championship. So
I had the egg on my face after Stenhouse won Daytona. I'll take the egg on my face because I have no faith in Kyle.
I will put Justin Haley up in this driver D tier. He's been really consistent so far this season, averaging over 31 DraftKings points, down at 6,400. If you're kind of scraping the bottom there, looking for a little bit of a leverage play, Haley's never really highly sought after. He's never chalky. So I think Justin Haley belongs in that D category. That's kind of where he hovers all year, isn't it, Ellie? Like right in that DE. He always flips back and forth. I think he deserves to be in the D this week.
Kolek is all right. Again, it's just a matter of waiting to see them hit consistency and have speed. But speaking of guys who won lower series championships here last year, Zane Smith is in that 38 this week. Are we maybe liking him for a D or E at 5,200? That's a pretty cheap price.
Oh man, I've been looking for a matchup to actually like bet against Zane Smith, and I haven't found anything quite yet. Chris, you're shaking your head down there, like you're just like, I feel like you like to prey on these rookies early in the season, man.
Yeah, we just talked about this on Flycon this week too. I mean, just think about like the past few years, the rookies that have all come up. Nobody's had success in their first year. It takes 2-3 years to really start making moves in this, not only in the next gen car, but just in the Cup Series in general. Like it just takes so long to be able to make a stand. And I will pick on every rookie until at least halfway through the season.
Yeah. Elliot, I feel like we should probably throw Eric Jones up in the D. That's kind of where I feel like he belongs, somewhere around there, just not to be, not.
That makes sense.
Anyone
with Austin Dillon too. I mean, he was not very good at Las Vegas last week at all. I don't know. I guess he's a D just because RCR is fast. But
yeah, he finished 13th in the fall race, so I think Austin Dillon belongs in the D.
So fall race is such a crapshoot, though. Like I was saying, though, he could have been 13th because all the guys behind him were trying some weird shit. Who knows? But
that was, I don't want to like get on my high horse or anything, but that was probably my best call of the week because I was fading Austin Dillon every matchup I could because he was one of those guys just like had great finishes at Las Vegas last season, but just didn't have the speed in any of those types of tracks. So Austin Dillon's fine, 10th in average speed last year at this track. Like I think he can compete at least for a top 15, but I don't want to pay. I don't think he has the upside this week for him. So yeah, at 7,500, I'll pay down a little bit for Almirola, Busher, one of those guys, I think.
Not bad. Yeah, in terms of everyone else here, McDowell's McDowell, Stenhouse is Stenhouse. Harrison Burton is another young guy who hasn't quite figured it out. And the rest are either cars that aren't running or your typical starting park. Seth, I don't want to hear a damn word about Cody Ware. So.
Hey man, Cody Ware has been worse. All I'm gonna say, almost averaging 20 DraftKings points this year, man. Give some love. Hey, they're averaging more DraftKings points, double the amount than Ty Dillon. So if you said gun
Yeah,
to the
but
head, you got to put one of them in your lineup. It's Cody Ware, BJ McLeod over Dillon this year, boys.
that's fair. That's fair. But yeah, this has been a lot of fun ranking most of the drivers, to at least giving a sense or two on most of the guys. Next week, we'll try to clean it up, try to get some of these. The 44 is not running this year. The 50 is barely running. Jimmy's not running every week. So we'll try to eliminate some of that confusion, take out some of these guys that aren't running every week. But certainly hope you've all enjoyed the tiers as much as we have been doing them this year.
Let's go. Let's get into some bets now. We're on a heater. Let's see if we can keep it up here in Parking Garage Props, baby.
All right, so in the notes here, it looks like the books are decent for Phoenix, and I see the very first bet in here is related to Stewart Haas Racing, so that'll make Chris happy, Seth.
Yeah, so I was looking at the outright market, and honestly, we got the Kyle Busch a couple weeks ago. I felt like that was a kind of obvious one. We all went balls deep on Ross, including the flag hunting boys, apparently, and it didn't pay off. And until I see practice and qualifying, there's nothing out there in the outright market that screams like, you got to get in on this now. Like, obviously, we know if one of these guys, whether it's Logano, whether it's C. Bell, he might be the only one I'm maybe tempted to grab before practice and qualifying. But like whoever qualifies on the poll, we're probably looking at what, a plus 400, plus 500 after that. So I think I'm just going to wait it out. The SHR plus 550 to win in general, I think that's kind of appealing. Chris, you've been all over SHR. Would you be willing to dance with that? You're getting Briscoe in that mix as well. Kevin Harvick, Almirola, and Ryan Preece, man, who's been good on these shorter tracks.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think the only outright I've got this week so far, pre-practice and qualifying, is Chase Briscoe. And we just talked about how much we like Harvick. So if two of the guys that I like the most we're getting plus 550 for potentially, against a favorite after practice qualifying, yeah, I can get on board with that for sure. Not surprised though.
Chris, is there anyone else in this outright market before P's and Q's that you're saying I need to get after that? I need to punch my ticket right now, other than that Briscoe?
Not really at all, honestly. I mean, like you said, because Ryan Blaney and Logano are sitting at the top, but if they go out and hit the pole, like I don't even think we're going to see 4 or 5. I think we're going to see them at 6, or 7, and that's still like I'd rather wait to see what we're going to have some vindication behind practice and qualifying numbers before we, bite the bullet at the top. Because I think we were just looking at the odds board a second ago. There's like 12 guys priced between 8 and 12. Like it's ridiculous. Like even the books aren't even making a stand. So why should we?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you there. Let's go to placement props then. Chris, what are you seeing in this market that you're eyeballing right now, pre-practice?
Yeah. So I think if I am going to put my eggs in a basket somewhere, I think I'm going to go like either a Logano or a Harvick top 5, one of those two. I mean, when you talk about guys who are like staples of this track, number 1 and number 2 in average finish over their careers here, in drive rate over the last 7 races, in similar track total speed last year in driver rating, these two guys were kind of the form of consistency. So I think top 5 market for those two is kind of my lean right now.
Okay. Yeah, I'm with you on the Harvick. I've already punched that ticket, plus 170 for a top 5 over there on Barstool. 2 top 10s so far this season. As we mentioned earlier, 19 straight top 10s here. Average finish over 40 races is 8.7. Like, that is incredible. That might be one of the best average finishes. Like, if you put everyone's best track up there, Harvick is just another class here. 2nd in total speed ranking at these shorter flat tracks last season. And if you're looking at speed rankings over there at iFantasy Racing, only 3 drivers were top 5 in that both of these races. That's Blaney, Briscoe, and Harvick. So 3 guys outside the championship 4 that, like, that's what I like to see. That's something I am viewing from that fall race here. Elliot, how do you feel about Harvick and anything else that you're seeing in this market we should be considering?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we're high on SHR this week. I think if we take one sentence from each of the episodes this year, that's going to be our takeaway from this week on the Backroad, is that SHR, we're high on them. Whether it's Harvick or Briscoe or maybe a wild card with Almirola or Preece running up there, this would be a crazy one. I don't know if they'd put out odds on it, but maybe all 4 Stewart Haas cars top 10 or all 4 in the top 15 could very easily happen. I mean, they've run pretty well. In terms of top 10s, I think this was like a promotional bet on Caesars. I just started looking at that book, so I'm still kind of learning that one a little bit. I saw one plus 375 for both William Byron and Daniel Suarez to be in the top 10. We weren't
Ooh.
super duper high on them in the rankings this week. Obviously, we like the Fords, but these two guys have run consistently. The plus money, especially at plus 375. I kind of like that. That's not too bad.
Byron feels like almost a lock for a top 10 here to me. And Suarez, like, it's going to be on that line. I think he's somewhere between 10 and 17. I don't know where specifically. Like, I see him somewhere in that range, but it's a good number. Plus 375. Chris, are you willing to jump on that? Definitely a little bit like you're not nutsack on the table there, but like you're tugging the nutsack.
Yeah, that one's tough because I don't have Suarez rated very high this week. I'm actually fading him in this matchup that I keep referencing that I'm going to be bringing up here. So yeah, I don't hate it, but I don't think I'm going to do it.
You're not tugging. That's what you're saying here. Maybe a little flick. Maybe a little flick of the bean, but not a tug here. What about Chris Bell, boys? That's one of my top. I'm riding right now before I want to get on the top 10 or if I want to get on the top 5 here. But most top 5s this season for him. We already said that with Bowman, and he's been really good at these comp tracks. He's an ace at New Hampshire, 66% top 5 rate, 1 win in 3 starts. Richmond, same freaking deal, boys. 60% top 5 rate there in 4 races. 9th at Gateway last season. So it all lines up here. He hasn't cracked the top 5 yet, which is a little bit concerning if you want to hop on that plus 185 number over at Barstool. But he has a 50% top 10 rate. So I think minus 150, it's not going to make you rich, but I'm definitely confident in that and maybe going up to plus 185. Chris, would you take either one of those 2 bets?
The top 10, I think I would. Top 5, I'm on the fence about. Because of these short flats, Phoenix is probably the worst for Christopher Bell of these comp tracks. Like, he's so much better than all the other ones. But, you know, he is like the short flat king in a lot of our eyes. So, you know, he could very well come out here and just, you know, be the class of the field. And I don't think any of us would be surprised.
Yeah, I got to see practice first. Then I'll be a little more confident on Bell. But for now, on all the Toyotas, I'm a little, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I feel you there. Anything else in this market, Chris, that you're considering right now or that you're at least keeping an eye on?
In placements, or can I do a group bet?
Placements. Let's round out placements here.
Yeah, nothing yet. That's it for me.
Okay. I just want to throw it out there, and it's not perfect, but plus 110 for Bowman again. I mean, guys, he has been so spectacular this season. Top 3 in average speed ranking at Las Vegas, 6 here the week before as well, and 9th in average speed ranking at Phoenix in this spring race, 10th in Richmond before that summer slump. Like, I think that's why Bowman gets such a bad rap here. I already kind of talked about that, but it's not perfect, but he's the most consistent driver, and at a plus money bet, I don't hate it. Any support here? We got a raging Bowman fan in the show, and I don't think he's on it with me.
Chris, I'll let you go first if you have any Bowman opinion, because then I'll transition into the head-to-heads with my Bowman fade this week.
All right. So from a total speed metric, right? If we're looking at iFantasy Race, he was top 10 in 3 of the short flats last year. Phoenix won, he was 9th. In both Richmond races, he was 10th at both of those in total speed. So if you pair that with what we've seen this year, you know, I think Seth has kind of found something, but at the same time,
let's go,
Phoenix,
baby.
Phoenix also has not been very kind to Bowman. So another one that I feel like you could really go either way. But I don't blame you for what we've seen so far. You know, with the new crew chief too, you know, things are certainly clicking for the 48 team.
It's just a question. I mean, we've been riding this thing for 3 weeks now, Elliot. So it's just a matter. Do we quit while we're ahead? We've gone 3 straight from him, or do we, you know, just keep trying to ride the hot juice? Like it's the same thing with fantasy football. Sometimes I just can't get off these guys if they're on that hot streak. Elliot, you're obviously saying with your next bet, it's time to get off the train.
Yeah, and I mean, trust me, you know, the crew chief change with Blake Harris has worked out well. Bowman's been one of the most consistent drivers. He's had speed. He's led laps in every race, which is all great as a fan. But looking at it from a fantasy perspective, the speed has just not been there. He's been borderline top 10. Phoenix hasn't treated him well. The short flats are traditionally the worst tracks that Bowman runs on. He does have a win at Richmond, but that was because of a late restart, and Greg Ives pumped up the tires, gave him big-time short-run speed, and that's the only reason he was able to win that one. I'd love nothing more than to see Bowman keep going on the top 10s, but I don't like it. And I'll transition here into some of the head-to-heads here. I've got a Briscoe versus Bowman. Briscoe minus 120, Bowman minus 110. I got to take Briscoe there. I think that was on Caesars. And then on DraftKings, Even a Reddick minus 105 versus Bowman minus 115, I'm taking the 45. I don't think that Bowman's going to have a terrible week. I think he's probably 12th to 15th, maybe 15th to 20th, somewhere in that range. I'm just very wary of him getting back in that top 10. So, yeah, write it down in ink because you're not going to see it often. I'm firmly against Bowman in the top 10 this week. And Chris, I'll let you. I think we might have the same group bet because I was interested in a group bet too, but I'll let you bring it up since you've been pushing it.
Yeah, sure. So I actually had the same head-to-head. Actually, Briscoe over Bowman, I think, is one that I had written down as well.
Especially with how much we've been hyping up SHR. It's an open.
Yeah, that one's a pretty auto click for me. The group bet that I've been referencing is actually we found on Bovada. It's Group D winner. You can get Almirola at plus 295 over Bubba, Brad, and Priest.
Okay, that's a different bet. So I like that I still get to bring up mine, but let's hear yours first.
Yeah, so I mean, I just think I'm not afraid of any of those guys. Like the guy that I'm maybe afraid of most is Priest, is the other SHR guy in that group. Bubba and Brad do not scare me in the slightest against these guys, especially Almirola. I mean, he is so consistent at these short flats, and there's just in my model alone, I've got Almirola at 12th, and all these other guys are 18th or worse. So yeah, this one it's almost get plus 300 on a group bet is just feels good.
Who were the other cars in that again, Chris?
Bubba, Brad, and Priest.
Bubba's a wild card, man. Bubba's a wild card.
Not at Phoenix, it's not.
I said the same thing last year at Loudon in all my matchups and got burnt. So I can't take it, but I understand. I'm also on a fade at Eric Almirola build tonight. So we'll talk more about that. I guess right now, honestly, why don't I jump into that one? What do you guys think about Chris Buescher plus 118 versus Almirola minus 155? And I totally get that Almirola is the better Phoenix driver when you look at the track history, but I don't think it should be such a difference where he's plus 118 Buescher, that is. Top 20 rate of 83% for Almirola, so he is consistent, but I think Buescher could possibly be a top 15 car this week. Recent performances, like he's 10th best in NASCAR right now in average finish this season, so he has been consistent, 12.7. Finished 10th in this very race last season as well. 3rd and 15th at the two Richmonds, missed Gateway, of course, and then came back 17th at Loudon. So like he could have a top 10 day, Chris Buescher, but I feel more confident betting a matchup versus Almirola, who average finish so far this season, Chris, 24th. And like, I know he has been very good at Phoenix, been very good at some of these other Gateway, some of these similar tracks. But then there's like Loudon last year where he just like had a terrible day overall. And like, he can do that sometimes. And I'm afraid the stench is too far to go back from it.
Yeah. I'm not comfortable betting that one. However, I have one that's even better than this one.
Ooh, all right.
And it's the same driver. But
Buescher, baby.
You can get Chris Buescher over Noah Gragson at minus 125 on BetUS right now.
That's Seth's face says it all.
Holy, this is why I love bringing Chris on, because like not only does he bring Bovada odds most of the time, he's bringing BetUSA and all these like smaller books.
I got the offshores.
That's what the product of living in North Carolina is, huh?
Exactly. Yep.
Oh, there we go. No, that's okay. Wow. You can talk more about that if you'd like, Chris. That is amazing.
I mean, I don't think there really anything needs to be said, right? We just talked about how we're not betting on these rookies. Like, we're fading the rookies, if anything. And we're talking about a guy that's borderline top 10 at these short flats against a rookie, like in a 42 car. Like, Seth, I'll give you my bet.
What's the number for Gregson over Buescher there, though? What's that on?
Minus 105. They have Gregson as the favorite.
What? No way.
Okay. I thought that was going to be like a Gregson big time plus money type deal. And if it was like a plus 200 or plus 300, I'm like,
Seth, you want to Venmo me after the show? I'll put it in for you.
Yeah. And also, if you don't mind, Chris, I have my column for betting pros. I think I'm going to have to say that's my best bet of the week for the matchup department.
Yeah, my God.
I mean, I feel a lot better fading Grayson at that number than fading Almirola. I'll take both. I'll ride the Chris Buescher train, but yeah, we're going to have to get on that. That's incredible, Chris.
Listen, it's the offshores that have these matchups you can take advantage of. I faded Gregson last week. Actually, it's funny because I had Almirola over Gregson last week. Kind of similar matchup. And I got a little nervous when Almirola hit the wall on the last 3 or 4 laps. I was like, oh my God, are you kidding me? It's going to cost me, but we still cashed. So
okay. Okay. Elliot, what else do you have here in the matchup of the groups department that you're eyeing?
Well, with that Busher bet, the plus 118 over Almirola, I'll go back to that real quick. We like SHR this week. If there's one SHR guy I'm comfortable fading, it's always Almirola.
Thank
So
you. Thank you.
Busher at plus money, I'm taking that. But the group bet that I had, I found this one on, I forget if it was DraftKings or Caesars, my apologies. But Group D, I think it was DraftKings. It's got all four guys at the same odds, plus 265. The winner of Eric Jones, Brad Keselowski, Eric Almirola, Austin Cindric. And I thought that was intriguing, very evenly matched. None of these guys are going to win. Maybe none of these guys are going to end up in the top 10, but a very interesting one. I guess maybe I'll probably have to lean Keselowski here, maybe even Cindric as a wild card. But of course, Almirola being the SHR guy. That's the great thing. Everyone's got even odds. I can make an argument for all four of these guys.
Yeah, this is a tough one. This is like I don't know, spin a bottle or something. I can't
Literally,
pick.
yeah.
I can't pick. I feel like all these guys, this is going to be 15th through 18th in my book, honestly. I'm good.
You can get plus money on whichever one ends up 15th, right? So
yeah, damn, that's a tough one. Chris, do you have a lean in this one initially?
I mean,
you're going Almirola, aren't
yeah,
you?
right. I mean, like, is there a theme here? But I will say the guy that scares me the most is Cindric, right? Because if Penske comes out and has the speed we expect him to, or the speed we saw last year, at least, Cindric did run pretty well last year. He also qualifies really well at these tracks too. So, you could be chasing pretty early.
Okay. Fair enough. Boys, any final bets here? Like, I feel like we've been ripping them off here pretty quickly, fast and furious. I'm through my card right now. That's everything I got out there before P's and Q's. Chris, anything else you want to throw out there that we should at least be eyeing, and any offshore gems you still got left for us?
I do have a few other groups I'll throw at you real quick, just because I think there are some fun groups out here. So Bovada Group G, Group L is the one I wanted to look at. Is Reddick, Suarez, Keselowski, and Bubba. What do you guys think about that one? Because Reddick is plus 210 in that.
Yeah, my gut feeling is either Reddick or Bubba, the 2311 guys.
Say that group one more time.
Reddick, Suarez, Keselowski, and Bubba.
Well, it's tough to go against Suarez.
I almost want to take Suarez. What's the numbers on that?
Reddick's 210, Suarez 225, Brad 325, Bubba 325.
I'll take Suarez. I'll take Suarez, but I think I would just rather not bet that one because like Reddick's so streaky. Like he's been god awful this season, but he could
run 5th or he could run 35th, or he could be 5th in speed ranking and finish 35th still.
I think if we see qualifying and we do not see Reddick like beasting it, I would definitely pound Suarez on that one then. But if like there's a chance Reddick bowls this thing, I don't know. He's that type of player at these tracks. So yeah, I like that one. What else you got for us, Chris?
All right, one other one, and I think this one's also a little closer, a little harder to bet. But Elliot's talked about the Bowman fade, right? So Group C on Bovada, you got Bowman as the favorite over Briscoe, Reddick, and Suarez.
That's what
I think. That's what I have written down. So 225 and actually 225 apiece for Bowman and Briscoe, 260 for Reddick, 300 for Suarez. So I think I know which way Seth would go on that one, but I have Briscoe pinned for that one as well.
Suarez is tempting at that price, but I'm still going Briscoe.
I think Bowman's going to let a lot of people down, boys. Or not Bowman. Excuse me, Briscoe. I think Briscoe's going to he was hot here last season, but I just don't know if that repeats. And I love Briscoe. I'm a big Briscoe fan, but yeah, I worry about that. But I'll just say DNF for this one. I'm not doing it.
Hey, you're still high on Bowman. You're not going to pick him over win this one?
I like him, but if he's the favorite in this matchup, no, I don't see the value in picking it. So I think that's kind of where I am. But I do think he wins that group, yes. So, all right, boys. Chris, any final things, final thoughts, final notes, final bets, anything?
I feel like it's only right that I bring up one more Almirola bet.
Jesus Christ.
Hey, for the poll, 35-1.
Oh, that's not terrible.
Okay,
That's not bad.
Listen, Almirola, he knows how to qualify here. At the short flats, he hit his 7th at Loudon, 8th at Gateway, and then at the 2 Phoenix qualifying, he was 13th and 5th. So, all he's got to do is make that top 10, make that final round, and that 35-1 is no longer, it's much shorter, right? So that's the only pull bet I've got in so far. But yeah, obviously I've pounded Eric Almirola too much tonight.
Go ahead, Seth.
The last time we pounded him, we hit the outright on him 2 years ago. So it was a big outright too. So
not all about that. We were on Almirola that New Hampshire race though.
Yeah. So I like it. There is a theme. I wish Smithfield, like if you're hearing this right now, send us a little goodie bag. I'm sure Elliot. I won't rep it, but I'm sure Elliot will. Elliot will rep Smithfield here once in a while and get Rod to rep it when Rod's on. Chris.
Oh, yeah.
I love the fire, man. I love the juice coming in. I love everyone in the chat tonight. It's been awesome. Chris, how can we best support you throughout the remainder of the season, my man?
Yeah, so we're on Twitter at @flag_hunting. We're on Flag Hunting Podcast is on Apple and Spotify. Ian is actually writing articles for Rotoballer now for PGA betting advice. So big week this week with the players in store.
Yes, sir.
That's pretty much all everywhere you can find us, and it's been fun, guys. This has been a blast. I'm pumped. Like all of a sudden, like I'm ready. Like to just go ahead and start hitting some more bets.
He's ready, baby. More Eric Almirola for Chris. Chris, we appreciate it, man. For Elliot, you can catch him over at In Between Media. We got a lot of content coming your way. We have a weekly sports betting article we've been putting out there. Nice and sweet, not too much to it. Whether it's NASCAR, PGA, or some future NFL bets, we've been hammering those out. So check that out on the site. Subscribe to the channel if you guys aren't already. Let's hang out this NASCAR season. Let's continue to bring in those dollar bills, yo. Elliot, what do you got for the good, man?
Hey, I mean, the positions for tonight, Rise on SHR, Rise Almirola, and Fade Bowman. Good luck with your bets at Phoenix. Thanks for taking the ride down the back road with us. We'll see you again this time next week.
Hey, thanks, everyone.